Sometimes the story behind a philosophical idea is just as captivating as the idea itself. Sometimes its origin is inseparable from its meaning. The life and work of the enigmatic philosopher Elias Vane is one of those rare cases where the journey behind the thought feels like a philosophical parable of its own. Vane was born in 1902 in a quiet coastal town in northern Europe. From an early age, he was deeply introverted, always scribbling into notebooks, often wandering alone through fog-covered cliffs. By the age of 6, he had lost both his parents in a tragic accident, an event that would come to shape his ideas on impermanence, memory, and what he later called the gentle tyranny of time. Raised by a distant aunt and educated in the creaking halls of an old monastery school, Vane found comfort not in people, but in books, in the dusty silence of libraries, where ideas felt eternal and safe. As he grew older, he studied philosophy at a university in Vienna, but never completed his degree. According to letters discovered decades later, Vane believed that to be taught philosophy is to unlearn curiosity. And so he chose exile, from academia, from fame, even from his own name. He wrote under multiple identities, each with their own tone, their own doubts, their own obsessions. He wasn't trying to deceive anyone. He was trying to understand himself, piece by piece, persona by persona. It wasn't until after his death in 1968, in a modest, unmarked apartment in Prague, that a trunk filled with manuscripts, letters, and notebooks was uncovered. These would form the basis for his only known published work, the Interior Labyrinth. What emerged from that trunk was a book unlike any other. It wasn't quite a journal, not exactly a treatise. It was a mosaic of fragmented reflections on identity, solitude, dreams, despair, the failure of language, and the haunting beauty of simply being. The book had no chapters, no clear beginning or end. It was written as if consciousness itself were unraveling across the page, tentative, circular, often contradictory. One passage reads, "I do not write to be understood. I write because I do not understand. Myself is not a home but a hallway, and every thought is a door I am afraid to open." Vane believed that the self was not a singular thing but a stage, where different selves took turns performing. To him, the illusion of a unified identity was comforting, but false. What we call a self is really a collage of roles, memories, projections, and fears, stitched together to survive in a world that demands consistency. The idea is both unsettling and oddly freeing. If we are not bound to a single version of ourselves, then we are also not trapped by it. Vane wrote, "I am not lost. I am many, and each of me is looking for the other." There's a raw vulnerability that runs through his work, a quiet ache that doesn't ask to be healed, only acknowledged. His reflections on meaning are especially striking. For Vane, meaning is not something we discover. It's something we invent to distract ourselves from the silence. He wrote, "The universe does not speak, it echoes, and in the echo we hear only ourselves." Yet he wasn't cynical. In fact, his work pulses with a kind of quiet reverence for beauty, for longing, for the small moments that slip past unnoticed. He believed that philosophy wasn't about answers, but about paying attention, about becoming more aware of the questions we carry like shadows. And maybe that's why his work resonates so deeply with those who stumble upon it. It doesn't demand understanding, it invites reflection. It speaks not to who we are, but to the strange, fleeting feeling of being at all. As Vane once said, some truths are not meant to be solved. They are meant to be sat with, like an old friend watching the fire burn down. In a world obsessed with clarity and speed, Elias Vane's work reminds us of the beauty of ambiguity, of the slow, painful, and often beautiful process of simply existing. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.